Hey everybody, welcome to Time Lapse Drawings with Chris Wharton. Today's drawing is the City Comicon's Squirrel Mascot. For this video, I wanted to give you guys an idea of the process I used in creating this piece. I didn't just sit down and start off with my big piece of paper and immediately work on the finished drawing. This was mainly because I didn't exactly know how I wanted to draw the squirrel mascot. I had a picture of a squirrel wearing a mask, but that's pretty much all I had to start with, so I needed to sort of create a character and I wanted to play around with him first. So in the beginning, I grabbed my post-its and I started sketching out different designs. And when I had a couple that I liked, I sent them off to be approved. Once I had the go-ahead, I drew the drawing again on a larger piece of paper to really nail down that pose. Now at this point I had a really good idea of the kind of background I wanted the character to have. I had an idea of sort of an explosion with a bunch of comic books flying past the squirrel in the same direction it was jumping. I initially started to try sketching out the comic books flying past the squirrel, but I decided to take it over into Photoshop to really lay in the comic books as big shapes. And by taking it into Photoshop, it allowed me to get the drawing to be the exact size I needed it to be in the final version. So after bringing it into Photoshop, I went ahead and added some directional lines so I knew which way the comic books would be spreading from the explosion. After this, I blocked in the shapes of the flying comic books, allowing them to find places to really reinforce the silhouette of the squirrel. Once I was done with this, I laid out the explosion on a separate layer. Then using Photoshop, I added outlines around the shapes of the comic books and the explosion. And finally turned off the color layers so that just the outlines remained, along with the squirrel, so that I could print it out and put it on the back of the finished paper. After printing out those pages, I arranged them on the back of the finished paper and used a light box setup so that I could actually transfer those drawings onto the finished paper so I could start inking. This process that I just described is very specific to my tool set, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend everybody try this specific order of events in order to get to a final product, but it is my preferred method for this specific piece. If I didn't have access to Photoshop or I didn't have access to a light box, I may have chosen to do everything all on one piece of paper, planning and sketching it all out. Or I may have done the post-it thing and then transferred over to a big piece of paper. Or, for instance, I had access to a copy machine, I might have tried taking the post-it and then blowing it up on the copy machine versus blowing it up in a Photoshop type program. I think the takeaway from this is to find the process that works best with the tools that you have on hand and try to make whatever you have work for you. And don't let your lack of tools or any specific tools hinder your ability to actually get something done. Go ahead and do the best you can with what you have. Given enough time to experiment, we all develop a process that works best for us. And limiting our tool set may allow us to find creative solutions to problems that no one else has tried. Well, there you have the City Comicon's beloved squirrel mascot. Just in case you haven't guessed it, I'm going to be attending the City Comicon in Raleigh, North Carolina this April 16th. If you're in town for it, pop on by my table and say hi. If you liked today's video, please give me a big thumbs up and leave me a comment. And if you're new and you want to see more videos every week, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We'll catch you next week. Hey everyone, do you have a cool idea for a character commission and do you want to see that commission being done in a time-lapse video? Go to patreon.com/Chris Wharton and check out my cool new Patreon rewards.